Alright, so in this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips to doing long distances on your motorcycle. Let's check it out. What's going on, YouTube? BKLO is back in the building. And we're out here on the beautiful wildlife loop, and I figured since today is our last day before we hit the long road again, and my mind is fresh thinking about, you know, what I need to do to put in almost 2,000 miles to get home. I figured I'd make a quick video just giving you 5 of my tips of how I'm able to push my bike to do very, very long distances. So this video is really for anyone who's doing a road trip where you're doing multiple 500 plus mile days, right? So if you're like going cross country or doing like we're doing like New York or somewhere further to Sturgis, that's kind of who this video is tailored for. So if you're putting in a lot of miles, multiple days, I think these tips might help you out. Alright, so tip number 1. Invest in a very good pair of earplugs. Especially if you're doing it on a Dyna or something, you know, that's not necessarily built for touring. After a while, it might not get to you in like 100 or 200 miles, and you might not even notice it. Like I did my first Sturgis trip without wearing any earplugs. But by the end of the day, you're gonna be totally fried if you don't do something to kind of buffer out all that extra noise that you're gonna get when you're doing highway speeds all day. So it'll keep you fresh if you throw in the earplugs. And I mean, above all, if you plan on having a long riding career, you know, you want to protect your hearing. And it's just like all day of highway miles with the wind noise and the exhaust. There's just no way it could be good for your hearing. And I know that when I do days like that and I don't have protection in my ears, I just feel completely fried. So invest in a good pair of earplugs. Alright, so tip number 2. Listen to music when appropriate. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're on a long stretch of highway and you're doing nothing but going straight on the open road, a good way to kind of get through it when it gets kind of boring is listen to some music. So me personally, what I use is a Lassen FT4, and even with my earplugs, it's enough for me to pick up the music, but also hear the bike just to make sure the bike is running correctly. You don't want to have your music so loud that you cannot hear what your bike is doing. That's not good. But yeah, you know, sometimes when you're at a full tank of gas and you're like, oh man, I gotta run this tank down again, sometimes what could get your energy back up and get you excited is just, you know, throwing on some music. So that could get you through the really long miles when it starts to get boring, because it will get boring at some point. Alright, so thing number 3 is do your research beforehand and set your bike up so that you're putting yourself in a very comfortable position. So what I mean by that is my Lucky Dave's bars is the perfect height where not only does it allow me throw my bike around aggressively when I want to, but it's also the most comfortable position for my arms to be in. More importantly, you want to give yourself a backrest. So the Biltwell Xville 70 that I run is not enough by itself to give me a full backrest. So what I did this time is I borrowed a pillow from my mother's patio set, and I put that in between, and I used that as a backrest, and that was perfect. So with a comfortable setup, you can easily do 500 plus mile days, get up the next day and do it again. Now, if there is something about your setup that's making you uncomfortable, trust me, you're gonna start to feel it after the couple 100 miles, and you're gonna want to change it real quick. And the best way to make sure your trip goes smoothly is figure out your setup before you actually leave. That's why what I always do before I leave on any road trip is I fully pack my bike and I take it out for at least 50 miles just to make sure that my setup's good and that I'm comfortable. That way I don't have to do too much adjusting while I'm actually on the road. Alright, so thing number 4, and I call this preemptive hydration. And this is actually a trick that I learned from a buddy of mine who was a Marine, who was shown this during his basic training when he was doing that. And that's basically, a lot of people think that in order to stay hydrated, you need to be drinking water in the moment, right? Like, so stay hydrated. All right, let me drink like a couple bottles of water. But actually, the way to prepare your body for a day where it's going to need to go through that excess water supply is to hydrate heavily the day and the night before. So what I'll do is, if I know I'm going to be on the road all day the next day, and you know, usually if we're doing road trips like this, it's going to be hot, I will drink a lot of water the night before, and then my body will be stocked with that water for the next day tomorrow when I need it. So the one thing I would discourage about, you know, drinking an excess amount of water while you're on the road is it's going to make you have to use the bathroom a lot sooner than when you're going to have to fill up your tank of gas. So to really put in the miles, you want to be running down your tank to E every time. You don't want to have to stop while you're halfway through the tank. That's just going to cost you time. So if you hydrate the night before, you'll feel it in your body. Like, if you're on the bike and you're like, oh my god, I need to drink something, I'm parched, well then you're probably not hydrated. But if you do it properly the night before, like I do, then, you know, you stop, you get gas, maybe you drink a small bottle of water, you know, you're not chugging water or anything like that, and then you run down your tank and then you're good. So preemptively hydrate, that's the way to do it. Do not let yourself get dehydrated. That's a recipe for disaster right there. Alright, so tip number 5, and a lot of people forget this one. Change your tires before you leave for your trip, and invest in tires that are going to get you through your entire trip. So I was running a Shinko in the back, and there was no way that was even going to get me to South Dakota. What I know is tried and true at this point is the Scorchers that come stock with this bike. So I knew they would get me there and back, so before I left, I threw those on the bike, brand new set, so I wouldn't have to worry about changing the tire while I'm actually on the trip. You don't want to put yourself in a situation like that. You want to set yourself up to do as little maintenance while you're on the road as possible. The only maintenance I'm really doing on the road is maybe a chain adjustment and changing the oils once we get to the destination is kind of what I'm doing. But yeah, definitely give yourself a new pair of tires before you leave. Alright, so those are my 5 tips for putting in those long miles on your trip. I hope this was helpful. As always, thank you for watching. Stay safe out there and stay low. And BK Low is out.